Hello, and welcome to our listeners around the world. You're listening to the monthly podcast presented by JAMA Health Forum. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. John Ayanian, the director of the Institute for Healthcare Policy and Innovation at the University of Michigan and the editor of JAMA Health Forum.
And I'm Dr. Melinda Buntin, Bloomberg Distinguished Professor of Health Policy and Economics at Johns Hopkins University and the Deputy Editor of JAMA Health Forum. JAMA Health Forum is a peer-reviewed, open-access online journal focused on health policy, healthcare systems, and population health, and one of 12 specialty journals in the JAMA network. Follow us on jamahealthforum.com, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your multimedia, and on jamanetworkaudio.com. This is the final monthly podcast that John and I will be doing together. So I'm going to take this opportunity to interview John about his tenure as founding editor-in-chief of JAMA Health Forum. And my first question for you, John, is why did you decide to take on this role 5 years ago?
Well, thank you, Melinda, and I want to thank you for being such an outstanding partner in this journey. We've worked together since 2019, first developing JAMA Health Forum as a health policy channel, publishing commentaries, what we called insights during the first year or so of the health policy channel, and then advancing to launch a peer-reviewed open access journal that is the JAMA Health Forum that we know now, which launched in May of 2021. So I think when I was first approached by Dr. Howard Bauchner, who was the editor-in-chief of JAMA and the JAMA Network back in 2019, to consider this role of working together with the leaders of the JAMA Network to launch a new journal focused on health policy, I was actually excited by the vision and the prospect of this new endeavor. As a longtime professor in academic medicine and health policy, I've certainly been the beneficiary of journals as an author. I've participated as a reviewer and an editor, associate editor at other journals. And I certainly enjoy reading the latest developments in research and evidence-based commentaries in journals in our field in health policy and academic medicine. But I also felt that there was an opportunity for the JAMA Network to have an even stronger impact on our field. Over the course of my career, I've seen that physicians and other health professionals have developed much stronger and deeper interests in health policy and understanding how health systems influence the work that they do, how we pay for healthcare, how we structure it, how access is provided, how we measure quality of care. And to learn that the JAMA Network was interested in supporting and developing a new journal, and that they had a strong track record. In the prior several years, they had developed JAMA Cardiology, JAMA Oncology, and JAMA Network Open as 3 new journals preceding JAMA Health Forum. I knew they had the potential and the skill to launch a very successful journal in health policy. And so the opportunity to partner on that effort was an exciting one for me.
Yes, well, I would just say in return that one of the major reasons why I decided to take on the role of deputy editor was that I knew it would be fun to work with you, and it really has been. It's also been great to work with our editorial team, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. JAMA, of course, is a fantastic institution in our field, but I was also at that time chair of a relatively new department at Vanderbilt University School of Medicine, mentoring a lot of younger researchers, and I could really see that there was a need for another type of health policy journal. And I felt that JAMA Health Forum could fill that role, and I think that's one of the things it's done. And then finally, I think throughout my career, I've kind of been a sucker for the startup. So I always love to try something new. I think you like that too.
Yes, I think we share that strong interest. And to start something new that is well supported, as our journal has been by the JAMA Network team, I think has been a very exciting and satisfying part of our roles.
It's true. The infrastructure of the journal has really helped us to focus almost all of the attention that we devote to the journal to the quality of what appears on our pages. And that's really a privilege to have that much infrastructure around you so that you can be grateful for, but almost take for granted all those fabulous production people around you who are going to make sure the product looks great in the end.
Yes, and others that help us to disseminate
Hmm.
the articles that are published, like we do in these monthly podcast recordings with guest authors who have published in the journal, those who help to disseminate our work in the media and on social media, the people in the business operations and publishing group.
Hmm.
It really takes not just a village, but at least a city to produce a high quality journal. And we've benefited from that in the JAMA network.
I think that's true. And I think it's something that people probably don't appreciate from the outside of the journal. They see the final product, but how many different people contribute to it. That's been eye-opening for me. My next question, which we almost always weave into a question when we have a guest author on the podcast, is something about surprises. So, have there been any surprises for you in this role?
The biggest surprise, and it came in our first few months in 2020 as we were launching the Health Policy Channel, was COVID-19
Of
and the
course.
global
Yeah.
pandemic. And, I think we felt we potentially could have a soft launch and a gradual ramp up of the Health Policy Channel. And we launched in January of 2020, just as the first case of COVID-19 was being reported in the United States. And by March of 2020, many major institutions, hospitals, universities, businesses, public schools were essentially going to completely remote work because the COVID-19 was spreading so quickly in the United States as it was around the world. And that really heightened, I think, the need and importance for our efforts with the Health Policy Channel, because we very quickly started receiving a wide range of very timely and important commentaries. All the many issues about how we were allocating resources, how policies were being determined that influenced public health, that called on public health expertise, what was happening to the economy and the health implications of that during 2020. And then even into early 2021, as vaccines became available and we started to see some of the both benefits, but concerns about vaccines, concerns about side effects, about vaccine hesitancy or reservations that people had, and how our society and our economy was adapting, both here in the United States as well as around the world. That was really the big surprise that caught the whole world off guard, but I think showed the important role for content like we were publishing in JAMA Health Forum to help guide all those decisions and debates that were happening at a very rapid pace.
Yet, in a way, yes, of course, a global pandemic was a complete surprise, but we were incredibly well positioned because during that startup phase, that what we call the channel phase, we were set up to work virtually together, obviously, but also to be able to produce content very quickly. We were turning things around in weeks. That was what our common expectation was. And I think other journals maybe took a little longer to pivot to producing information as quickly as we were actually set up and designed to do during that channel phase. So that was a fortunate coincidence. And it was challenging, but really compelling to just dive into producing that content. And at the time, you and I were writing a lot of editorial content as well, just ourselves, in our home offices, things like that. But that also just felt like we could really be doing something important during that period in time because JAMA Health Forum existed.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah. So then we turned into the fully peer-reviewed journal phase of JAMA Health Forum, and we pulled together our colleagues who form our editorial team, and that kind of changed the momentum of the journal. What do you think are the biggest accomplishments we've had as a team over the past, I guess it's 3.5 years that we've been publishing peer-reviewed content?
Well, I think you referenced one of the most important ones. Here at the University of Michigan, we often quote Bo Schembechler, who said it's all about the team, the team, the team. And certainly in my career, not just with this journal, but other efforts I've been a part of, it really rests on the quality of the team and the ability of team members to work together to accomplish a common goal. And you and I put a lot of thought into the colleagues that we recruited in as associate editors and statistical editors to our team. They've just been a really talented and committed group that have made it so much fun for you and me to work together on this journal. And, when I think about our biggest accomplishment, I think the distance that we've traveled and the momentum that we've gained in the past 3.5 years since becoming a fully open access peer-reviewed journal has surprised me as well. And, that's a credit to our team. It's also a credit to our authors who've been sending us outstanding research and viewpoint commentaries. I really want to thank our reviewers who guide us in our decisions, and then everyone within the JAMA network that helps us to produce such a great product in the journal that readers see each week.
Yeah, I want to really echo that and say one of the nicest things is that we've heard on multiple occasions from authors who have told us that the experience they have interacting with a journal has really been rewarding. The peer review process improved their article. The turnaround times were quick. And of course, our editorial manager, Ava Scalzo, is a big part of that as well, making sure author queries are answered quickly and things move through production efficiently.
Yeah, Ava's been a great contributor to the work that we've done, and that behind the scenes work of communicating with authors and reviewers and manuscript editors in Chicago to make sure that we're producing high quality articles and in a timely manner. There are many moving parts to that. And I think when I look back over the last several years, I'm very pleased that how widely read the journal is now. Since launching as a peer-reviewed journal, we've published a little over 1,000 articles, and those articles have been viewed or downloaded over 10 million times. And we're very pleased and honored with our impact factor for the journal, which measures how often our articles are cited in other journal articles around the world. And our most recent impact factor is 9.6, which places us number one out of 119 health policy and health services journals in our category that represent our peer group as a new journal. So that's another aspect of our work that I'm very pleased with and look forward to continuing as the journal continues to grow.
Yeah. I would say one of the most popular parts of the journal that's a little different, we haven't mentioned yet, is the JAMA Forum. These are essentially a group of over a dozen people who are regular contributors, like columnists, if you will. And some of their columns have been the most popular content published in JAMA Health Forum over the years. We've had the privilege of working with Joan Stevenson as the original editor of those, and now Sean Kennedy. And I can say one of my favorite editorial jobs is getting to read and usually very lightly edit those columns because they're fun, they're interesting, and I think we're proud of the diversity of opinions that they represent.
Yes, I share that view. I always look forward to reading and providing editorial suggestions to our JAMA Forum contributing authors. And as you mentioned, that's one of the most widely read sections of the journal. And it's a group that has a lot of relevant experience and insights. They write well, and they're often choosing topics that are very important to our healthcare system in the U.S. and around the world.
Well, now I'm going to take the opportunity to turn the tables again, ask you a couple questions that we always ask our guest authors on the podcast. So you know what's coming. What's the best advice you've been given about your career?
So I think first and foremost, the best advice I've been given is to choose research topics that you care deeply about and really try to see them through with a depth of effort. One of the things I love about the research that I do and the work that we publish in JAMA Health Forum is that it's very often interdisciplinary teams of researchers coming together with clinical expertise, with expertise in health economics and other social sciences or statistics, in public health and other related fields. So working on topics you care deeply about with colleagues who bring fresh and different perspectives from your own, and really staying committed to the quality and the rigor of the work you're doing. I think it's better to do a smaller number of studies very well than to just try to generate sort of the maximum number of studies or articles that you might be capable of producing. Because at the end of the day, I think it's those principles that I've been advised that I think helps to raise the prospect that your work has lasting value. Obviously, we like to publish in good journals, but we want the work we do to have staying power and to contribute to a field and to build on others' work and to continue to advance our understanding of some of these tough challenges that we have in how healthcare is delivered, how the social determinants of health influence people's health outcomes. And, it's sometimes a kind of a lengthy process, but over time, I think you can really have an impact if you stick with those topics that you believe are important and will make a difference in people's lives.
I think that's true, but I would also say that something I've learned during my career, and I think I was probably given this career advice by a policymaker as opposed to an academic mentor, was that we should all listen to policymakers as well. So I think we often walk into a policymaker's office with our latest, study in hand, and we want to tell them about what we've learned and what we think is important. But often the best way to start that relationship is to ask them what they think is important. Start there and then build a trust that will let you bring other results to them over time.
Yeah, and I think a corollary of that would be to listen to the communities that we're
Hmm.
studying,
Good point.
the patients or the communities outside the healthcare system that we're often engaging with. And I think that's one of the changes I've seen over the course of my career is this emphasis and focus on community engaged research. And policymakers are one of the communities that is an important kind of audience for the work we're doing. And often we're studying their actions and we benefit just like we would with other communities that we're working with, kind of understanding their lived experience and how they interpret what the data that we collect may mean and why it's important.
Well, I think that leads into our favorite final question for guests, which is what do you expect will be the biggest change over the next 5 years in health policy?
Well, I think the biggest concern I have is what the future holds for the Affordable Care Act. We're in a similar position back in 2017 during President Trump's first term when there were Republican majorities in both the Senate and the House, and they had campaigned on a plan to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. And that plan was passed in the House of Representatives and came very close to passing in the Senate until Senator John McCain voted against that plan. So, in this campaign that we've just been through, there was much less attention to the Affordable Care Act, but I think the Affordable Care Act is now much more deeply ingrained in our healthcare system, in Medicare, in Medicaid, and the rules governing private insurance, in the ways that insurance benefits are provided to millions of Americans. So I think the big question, and I don't know that I have a clear prediction on this, but I think the biggest question is, will we continue to have the Affordable Care Act largely in its current form, or will the new president and Congress try again to make major changes? And I think it'll be important for a journal like JAMA Health Forum to be publishing timely evidence-based commentaries and research studies when available that can help inform those decisions about how we continue to pay for and deliver healthcare in the United States in the years to come.
I think that's about as good a prediction or set of expectations as we can have at this point. I think it's pretty clear that the next 4 years will not look like the past 4 years, but always lots of work to do in the arena of health policy and lots of good things left to publish in JAMA Health Forum. It'll probably be more important than ever to do this type of research.
So as I wrap up my term as editor-in-chief of JAMA Health Forum, I want to welcome Dr. Sandro Galea, who will be assuming the role as my successor starting in January 2025 as the new editor-in-chief. I'm very pleased that you and the rest of the team of editors will be continuing, along with our editorial manager, Ava Scalzo. Dr. Galea is planning to recruit 3 new editorial fellows to join the team, so there'll be some changes that I think will be constructive ones as the journal moves forward. And I really want to thank everyone who's contributed to the journal over the past 5 years and look forward to the journal continuing to flourish in the years to come. And thank you, Melinda, for being such an outstanding partner in this effort.
Well, thank you, John. And also thank you to all of the guests on this podcast over the past 3.5 years. We really appreciate the time you took to be part of this podcast with us. I'm Melinda Buntin, and I've been speaking with John Ayanian about his tenure as editor-in-chief of JAMA Health Forum. You can find a link to his farewell editorial in this episode's description. This episode was produced by Daniel Musisi at the JAMA Network. To follow this and other JAMA Network podcasts, please visit us online at jamanetworkaudio.com or search for JAMA Network wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks for listening.
This content is protected by copyright by the American Medical Association with all rights reserved, including those for text and data mining, AI training, and similar technologies.